shareholder councils have a good understanding of what the water company is, how it's going to meet their intent.
I think flexibility around the decision to do or not to do things is really there. And by books and legislation, you know, you've just got to do these things. It's not a case of, will I do this and will I do that? You can do both of them.
In the consultation document for Southern Water Done Well from last year, it said the shareholding councils would have input into the strategy of the.
They have input with regards to the statement of expectation.
Right.
Once it's drafted, it will come back to the shareholding representative group, the mayors, and they'll have an opportunity to review that. I think the way the constitution and the way the shareholders agreement will be written is that they won't have a veto over what goes in there, but through a collaborative exchange, they'll be able to say, we want this more emphasised, this. So there's a process for that, but ultimately the board of the water company has to give effect to the shareholders' expectations, but the shareholders can't hold the board to, they won't have the power of veto.
Over the strategy. So, yeah.
But that hasn't been finalised.
You'll see a draft probably at the end of March, and the mayors have been reasonably clear in their intent of what it should look like.
Okay, no further questions?
In the water treatment, there's carbon reduction. Revised budget of 150.
So can you just repeat that because I didn't quite hear?
In the budget on the three waters, so this year about treatment carbon reduction.
Oh, yeah, I can explain that. It works, will progress toward the end of this financial year. We're putting some solar panels on the Lake Dunstan water treatment plant. We're trying to reduce our electricity costs. Some of those sites use huge amounts of electricity. So there was budgets around carbon reduction. It's effectively trying to reduce our energy consumption. We're currently trending over budget on our electricity budgets, and that was after putting 42% emphasis on it.
For electricity, do we get a government stores rate for electricity?
If we go through that government,
And that's still even.
still.
That
When
will
you
be,
get more treatment processes in,
Yeah.
and you've got high levels of treatment, and you've got growth happening in your networks, we've got more people consuming, you're using more electricity, so I see today.
The whole payback would be a good option at what, 5, 6 years.
With the staff are working through that now, and it's looking like it's looking quite positive for us, so.
Yeah.
So I think it's, we're the Clyde Wastewater Pump Station's another site that we'll be looking at, but we've got budgets in every year for a number of years to set up to this.
So we're going to stay under our budget spend, but we know electricity is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, well, by spending this bit of capital, we'll start to reduce it.
significance. B, authorises the second 25-26 revised operating budgets as in table 1. And C, authorises the second 25-26 capital projects. Against, carried. Thank you. Great report. Yeah. Okay. So adoption of the triennial agreement. Lean, that's yours, and that's item 26 to 11.
Okay, so, so the triennial agreement is, put together after each election, basically outlines, how, each of the areas of zone 6 will work with each other. And it's a requirement of the law that this gets signed, to outline how we're going to plan this, I suppose. So it just requires council would be happy with the triennial agreement, authorise and to sign it on behalf of the council.
Questions?
Recommendations.
And I'll second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. It's you again, Wayne, and it's attendance at zone 5 and 6.
Yeah. So the conference in Christchurch, from zone 5 and 6, Carla Sanders from the VCB has indicated that she'd like to go to that. This has been to the VCB and they've given their blessing for her to attend. But of course it has to come to council as council holds the purse strings. So
the recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, right. And congratulations to Carla. I'm sure she'll get a lot out of that. Will you let Carla know?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. All right, so we're looking pretty good on timing. So we're going to. Duncan is here. Welcome, Duncan. We'll move through. You're having a bit moving through to them. Okay, so this is the resource management and delegations paper, and it is 26.2.13. Welcome, Duncan. And Saskia.
Report on resource management delegations can be taken as read. The essence of it is get out myself, which is plain for all to see. Like myself and Dr. Regards are available for us any questions. Recommended resolutions at the end of the paper. I know being said in concrete, but it's what it's required to set the record straight.
Any, no comment? Okay, questions, councillor. So I guess I'll kick this off. I guess the one thing that I was quite interested to know is, and obviously there's been this delegation has come up. Is there other delegations? What else is there that potentially could come up from this review?
For instance, the legislation, each of which have their own theory, in actuality have their own delegations regime. Many of them will default to the Local Government Act 2002 Schedule 7 delegation regime. Resource Management Act has its own delegation regime. The Building Act has one part of the Schedule 7 and its own thing. So each legislative piece of legislation has to be considered, read, still to the extent that the delegation that is necessary can be implemented. That's the lawyer's point of view. It works. There's like things that work. There's a inclination in local government, since I've been in local government, to take a full break approach. I feel uncomfortable about it, but together we will work out what is necessary.
Really good position now that we have an in-house general counsel. The whole time I've been at council, 7 years now. To my understanding, we've never done a thorough legal review of our delegations, so that is a priority project, as Duncan has indicated, within the team. And what we will do is start, with some of the really key pieces of legislation that Duncan has talked about, and work our way systematically, through the delegation. Council assurance, that we have done this review, that everything's.
Sound like down blue mention, but it's serious. And, it has to be taken seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. So from that perspective, how does this tie in with audit and risk?
In terms of risk, the organisation around our delegations, I suppose at the moment it's a really good question. We don't know what we don't know yet because we haven't done the review. I think it would be quite prudent for us to report to the audit and risk committee, obviously up to the council as well, as we move through the delegations manual. Overall, I believe, Duncan might be on this too, that council's risk is relatively low. The last 7 years, we haven't had anybody raising it with us. We've had sort of no challenges. Not to say that everything in there is perfect, but it is a matter that we are taking seriously to make sure that we have.
So Duncan, just picking up on that, you indicated that there was potentially a nationwide broad brush approach. It's just something that, and I know you possibly can't speak for other councils, but is this something that is not uncommon?
Well, in the environmental decisions or delegations, exercise. Widespread, people would be in a good position to make a judgment about that. So I don't think it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. The delegations stand unless they're challenged. The decisions stand unless they're challenged. And if it were necessary, the council could look to ratify decisions that were not sufficient for the city. They can deal with.
Any further questions from anybody? No, I mean, obviously you made that comment. I think it would be prudent to send it through to audit and risk for sure. That would be good if to have that through there, please. At least have Bruce having his eyes over that. Okay, so there's 3 options in here. Two options. Option 1 is the recommended option, which is we pass the resolution set out in the paragraphs above. Or option 2, we do not pass the resolutions. I will move that we approve option 1. Martin will second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Duncan, for the good work.
Thank you.
Okay. Wayne.
Continuing the delegation scheme. For a couple of changes here that I'd like to make. To the document itself and then one to some delegations. So there's a recent act that's come into force around all the services. And we'd just like to have those pieces delegated to the CEO in order for 3 audits to continue on the work, which was outlined in the report. Within the portfolio system that we use here at this council, there's the 3 waters of waste, and we just like to formally move the waste bit, which is solid waste, over to planning and inventory, to align with that department, department. So that's not water waste, that's solid waste, emission, the like. And then finally, we'd like to delegate over those parts of certain things that probably don't need to come to council. But of course, that's also, maybe it does. Yeah, so happy to take any questions.
Questions? And from you, Kips?
With the, Reserves Act stuff, would the container policy sit under that one too?
No, that's what it does.
Yeah, okay. The next question, thinking I have is that I don't doubt that for the most part, staff making the decision is the right call. I worry about the 1 in 10 or the 10% of cases, where it might need, local knowledge or elected member knowledge, you know, people that are, and community boards, elected members, obviously, you know, the people that are closest to the place, the people and the project or whatever. And I fear that if it's delegated to staff that, you may have something that falls outside of the parameters that staff are willing to accept. And therefore something good for the community may not be able to take place on a reserve, whereas if it was left with community boards and council, those unique instances could be dealt with, you know, by people that are basically closer to the issue. And particularly so in the outlying reaches of the district, the smaller communities. So that's, would be one of my concerns on that one.
Sasha, do you have a thought on community boards, because we haven't given that thought.
We haven't, and it's right, that we can got local knowledge in terms of how it's operated and what have you. Council can absolutely direct us that releases that you and that if it is that we have taken it to the community board. The only thing I say around that, and it's obviously in David's area, so he might be here as well, is just the time, the extra additional time it might take in the expectations around parties to get that they signed off. But that's completely for the council to decide. If you decide today that you really want the community boards to see them and then come for you to approve, that's your decision to make.
I think it did say here you take it to community boards for reports. One of your reasons is.
We would for recommendation, but
Yeah.
not for decision.
Yeah, no, sorry, that's what I was referring to,
Yeah.
but still.
Yeah.
You know, the recommendation has a little bit of weight when it arrives at this table. Yeah, and it's just to consider, as I said, 90% of the time, you're right, you know, the golf course one today, there's no issue. But it's the 1 in 10 or I just fear, are we doing this because it's convenient and efficient for the organisation, but really we should be thinking about the people that we're going to deal with in the future, and are they going to get the outcomes they deserve?
I guess because
That's perfectly fine, start to do that, that's what you would like.
I guess the decision on what's low impact
Yeah,
is the key thing here, is how subjective it is that. A staff member may say, well, it's low impact, but to someone who sits in your ear, and like Curtis is saying, that there's, there could be something that perhaps some other people have not considered. So I don't know.
I guess that's just a balance between understanding the community board and your council members and maybe bouncing ideas off them, but isn't that situation? Like,
But while it adds a wee bit of time, it's not too much, it's just like making sure that everybody's conscious of that process.
so how would that, sorry.
Sorry, I thought Martin had his finger up, but he might have just been scrolling. Sure.
So how, hypothetically, how would it work if it was delegated to staff and a decision was made and then we get the phone call after the decision and we come to staff and go, hey, come on, there's actually a bit more to this. How do you go about reversing this thing? Because reversing a decision could be more work than just writing the report, bringing it to us, getting the decision right. From the community's point of view, by council versus undoing staff decisions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The examples quoted here are useful because they do tie up time. So we have to take a report to the community board and a report to council for the Alexander Golf Club and of course the Cromwell Golf Club as well.
Yeah.
And so there's an example there with actually that we absolutely certain what the
Yeah.
And then we need to get that.
Be longer than 6 weeks, I'd suggest.
So-
I'll say probably even up to 10, so that, yeah.
Yeah, but is it worth it if you get the right outcome?
Problems on a monthly cycle to try and date as well.
The other argument is if you let it.
It's still 2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Fixed it. The classic example is the one we've just done. Really, staff could have. ticked
Yeah,
it off.
100%, yeah.
Yes, but the alternative is, how does this work with, the opportunities for new leases? Because that's where, I mean, I know of a couple of situations where leases have been requested and have been denied.
Yeah.
And
And that's where I'm leaving my
And-
thinking goes to.
yeah, and of course, with any community groups, because that's essentially what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Community groups, over time, they change.
Yeah.
For better or worse. And that's something that, you know, when you deal with one community group, they could be fine now. In 10 years' time, they might not have their structure set up the same as what they did. So you just, and that's where, community board and council knowledge does tie in.
Or I'll be better off letting the staff make the decision and deal with the 1 in 10s after the fact.
Yes.
It's harder.
But what's the mechanism for dealing with it? That's what I'm saying.
Look,
Well, you get
there are some leases we give out, and I won't name them, that are had for activities that are on recreational land that you probably wouldn't think is recreational.
Yeah.
But it serves a purpose and it's been there for a long time. That could be one of the ones where you want to take that back to the council, but look, you don't have to delegate this. Council can retain this, the decision-making rights. And, but to do that does mean that then we would have to make sure we get things in the order for the process there.
Time and resource.
But, you know, we could give an undertaking before we make a decision. And if we think we can test it with the mayor, we can test it with the chair of the community board to say, well, what do you think? And then just because it's been delegated, we don't need to make the decision now. We can bring it back to council and say, we think this one's a little bit more to it. We think it is appropriate to have,
But the main thing you're putting in there is the whole we think. People change, cultures change. We're just gonna be.
My fear is, yeah, it's just, I worry about the smaller ones, you know, smaller communities, smaller reserve areas, smaller organisations may not get something that across the line that's good for a community because of.
but if I use the golf club as an example, but disappointed with the time it's taken for us to resolve this.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've wanted to build that shed for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
They've been really good going.
Yeah, but 2 months is.
2 months in the age of some of them, mate.
Yeah. That's fast. You want money, you gotta stay 2 years for a long
So
time.
we're gonna go with option 2, not amend register.
Okay.
I think I would say the water one needs to be done.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just, the reserve act one, yeah.
Okay, so any further questions? Okay, so kind of identify that there's the 2 here. So let's talk about we'll obviously go through the recommendation. Says A, receives a report and accepts a letter of significance. We can move that part.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Stu, and a second for that part.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. And then we go, obviously adopts the proposed changes to the register of delegations. That part will potentially split depending on how we want to go through here. So let's just have a look. So first of all, the first one is the local government water services that delegation. So that's changing that delegation to the Three Waters and Waste portfolio. So are the same 2 people happy to move that?
We're splitting that. So
Yeah,
that
that's
delegation of
splitting.
water.
So are we all in favour?
Yeah.
Against? Okay, carried for that. And then going to the reserve side, so that's obviously
Not
the proposed
Not-
staff delegations under the Reserves Act.
the reserves act.
So,
We're against.
Against.
okay, so,
Three.
hold on a second, we'll just let Wayne get to there.
Right, Wayne, still right, Wayne, eh?
That's abuse.
Okay, so there's two options for this in relation to the Reserves Act. The first one. A show of hands would be the easiest, do you think, or?
We have a recommendation when we're going to just do the.
So you don't have to do that.
Okay,
Recommendation.
yeah, was it, or?
Recommendation, not amend the register.
Well,
of the
basically,
Reserves
it's,
Act.
so adopt the proposed changes, so those are the changes for the water.
Mm-hmm.
The change through waters and waste portfolio, C, saying declines the proposed changes, delegate parts of the Reserve Act 2077, Chief Executive Officer, and then note that the changes take effect.
Okay, so in relation.
Put that here.
Oh, that's,
The C is.
yeah, C and D.
I'll look at that.
Okay, so which one were you on now?
No, this is online.
Oh, she's online and she's ready, is she?
She is, yeah.
Okay, well,
Hello.
this is my.
I'm losing you every few seconds, so apologies if I freeze. Oh, it's completely frozen for me. Is it frozen for you guys? Okay, I'll wait till it's back. Cool. I can hear them again, I think. Okay, so this is the most embarrassingly named report that I do for you once every 3 years. It is a transitional or a temporary policy. It really reflects the maturity of our policy processes at the moment. There's two key reasons for it. The first is that we identified in a legislative compliance review that when some of our policies lapse, there's a little bit of a risk of falling out of compliance. This policy has a clause in it that says we continue to follow the process even when it's lapsed. It covers that risk for us. And then the second aspect is around that decision making. It's the piece of work that outlines that the adopter of a policy is the same body who makes the decision whether or not to retire it. So for those two reasons, we're recommending to pop it back in place for an additional 3 years, at which stage we'll review if it's still needed.
Okay, questions, councillors?
I have to agree with Alex. It's the strangest headline I've heard, policies that I've read for a long time. But this is just a common sense approach to putting a process in so that we are continually sort of reviewing our current policies and upgrading them where necessary or removing them in some cases if they become unnecessary. So, I support the recommendations.
It also protects.
Yes.
So if we do become out of date, it protects the current process to be continued on. So absolutely. Okay, so Martin will move that and I'll second that. All those in favour? Against? You, Alex?
Kia ora.
Oh. Okay, so we've got here. Oh, yeah, I can see you behind Curtis over there.
The big fella, isn't he?
Okay, so this is item 26.2.16, protected disclosure and whistleblowing policy adoption.
Thank you. So, the whistleblowing policy was due for its semi-year review. We took that to audit in December. The audit risk committee did ask that we have Duncan will review it from a legal perspective to check if the policy does align with the Protected Disclosure Act. And he did that review, and from that we have expanded a few of the sections just to add further clarity to make sure that it matches the Act's requirements for a local authority, but nothing changes the intent of this Act. So hopefully in the next review, there won't be much more to add, but hopefully this update has clarified a few of the items, such as definitions and the confidentiality aspect of a disclosure, as well as when we would refer a disclosure. And there's also an additional appendix which gives some examples about concerns and where they might be referred to, just when staff feel like they want a bit of extra context around what a protected disclosure might look like, they can read that and understand a bit more.
And I guess it's obviously the nature of this policy is quite confidential, obviously, at the best of times. However, if it was ever to be, I guess, utilised, so you're 100% confident that this policy will actually serve its purpose and protect both the organisation and the person. Okay. Any further questions? No? I'll move. That be, thank you, and seconded by Nathan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Oh, we've got you again, have we?
Yes.
Right.
To the next two.
Yes, we have.
Everyone was very good.
What do we got? So we got.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
it's the singles.
wonderful. Thanks, Amelia. That's quarterly performance and business reporting.
Yes, so this is the second iteration of the quarterly performance of this party. Technically it was due in January, but just because of the reporting time frames and annual leave and things, we did push this one out to February to make sure that we could provide all the data. Across the organisation. A few things to note. So it is pleasing that we continue to show a consistent trend on the performance measures. So 78% of the performance measures have been met. We did have so we had a couple of notifications in December that we might get a few more or two more lodgements in fast track space. So those are being monitored by the planning team. October to December, we had 10. So yes, we had a few that actually were in really quick succession. And obviously every time we have incidents like that, it does cost council and therefore the rate. So it's a disappointing trend, but hopefully that will go back down or next quarter. We've got 10 full-time placements and 8 casual, so that's really pleasing. And there's significant progress being made across lots of projects, which are at the end of the attachment.
Yep. Well, let me go first, Curtis.
The fast track applications, the Fulton Hogan Park Route one, is it
So I expect that they'll submit their application. Which if you look at Satana, that was 9,000 pages of stuff. I suspect Parkville will submit sometime over the next few months.
Yeah, and then the pumped hydro one, so that reference there, they've lodged to be accepted into the
Fast track.
as of 21st of January, they've done that.
Yeah, so that works its way up through EPA and then in the minutes. It's stated outwards and now, before they've been accepted, but before they've lodged their application, there's a requirement for pre-consultation. And, do stuff at the front end of that, but in earnest it now starts, depending on how good that is, we will make comment on that. So if you look at what our comment was, we were asked to make a comment on Sedana, the team was saying, look, the pre-consultation wasn't as good as it could have been in these areas.
Vandalism. Predominantly
Yeah,
residents.
Alex.
So, any prosecutions?
Not primarily. There
And if, for example, you find it was the young people in the community, are their parents held accountable? Or the cost being passed on to the families if there is prosecution? Do we prosecute?
It's usually left up to the police. It's really hard to prosecute, right? So, I mean, you said, like, if you've got CCTV, we can't film inside of the toilet. Like,
Yeah.
it's more of a deterrent than anything else. And you would literally have to catch someone physically doing the thing in the act, to be able to have any sort of prosecution.
Is there any technology that can assist us with?
We're trying, so the CCTVs at Pioneer Park have got sound modulators on. So you can see the people going in, and if vandalism occurs, then you can activate the sound modulator, and then
So
the police can see if they can marry up the time, so if you can hear some bashing or whatever in the toilets. It's still not conclusive. I don't think we've had a successful case with it. So it's just you got to mitigate, right? So it's CCTV to or you got to stop locking the toilets at night. All the ones that we've been locking, no vandalism is good. So the activity is obviously nighttime. I don't know, if people are more inebriated or whatever the case. That's what the evidence is.
What's the actual damage that's being done?
Very so.
Yeah, so they'll smash the toilet lids, they'll rip the air dryers off the wall. Yeah, they can do anything. They're trying to burn the low black toilets down. Yeah, it's about really inspire them. So it's just, there might be some cases of complete malicious behaviour, but most of the time it's more teenagers. It's fortunate.
Very disappointing because all it does is cost the road.
Yeah. And
Often when incidents happen, that's one in the town. I think the police have been here a couple of times to talk about CCTV and things like that as well. So there's probably been one or two incidents where we've seen something happen out of the toilet and then another section of notice cameras like that too. But like Gareth says, nothing that's been conclusive for us to be able to.
second question. I see you've got quite a lot of dogs, 99% dogs registration, something like that. We've got to make sure, after seeing what's happened in Northland, that there is no nonsense policy on dogs. And any dog that is even remotely thinking about worrying, it'll be put down straight away and you're good. It's just a no-go. We start occasionally, we see a few around the Minnetonka, they've been pretty good looked after and pretty strong rural dynamic in the community board. But I just want to
It's not even Northern, there's one in Christchurch, you guys, intensive care and critical conditions.
So, you know, as basically was, we've got a lot of dogs in our community for all purposes, and some are outstanding and some aren't. That we have a council policy of absolutely no nonsense, lock them up and put them down, that's it, simple as. No softness on that policy whatsoever.
Bring it home to your place.
Bring it to me, I'll rehome them.
Over the rainbow bridge.
I will rehome any person's dog that wishes to be,
6 feet deep.
Right, Mr. Jones, and I agree with
Oh, we just can't be in that situation, and the government, the Prime Minister made it clear that it comes under authorities, and we are that authority. And if you're, and
it. Also needs to
to
be,
be fair, even if there's a process, we did talk about it in the Minnetonka community where it may be if people, because some relationships break up and there's 2 or 3 dogs and they were not their dogs, and maybe we need to look at a program somewhere where you can get them put down if they are a nuisance and no one wants them, because at the end of the day, you end up with a pet in a broken relationship or somebody moved away. And or get them castrated if some people want it, and maybe that's something we have to look at if people come to us and say, look, I've got a problem dog, how do I deal with it? Because it might have been their ex-partner's dog from 5 years ago and it's still 6 years old and bites people, so. But it's a tricky one for people who've got dogs and nuisance. And like I've got some, I've got hearing disabilities as well.
Anyway.
So I just think, you know, we've got to make sure we front foot it, that's all.
Just with regards to, this report, which I think is really
that. I think, yes, the PDF, there may be an information PDF that hopefully,
someone much cleverer.
in the PDF version, I think it only puts on slide, I don't know if the HTML version is slightly worse, it was last time.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that, so that could be looked at. And in relation to the resource consent side of things,
A bit of a heat that would have happened just before July last year. And so some might have got their applications in, and now it's just settled down a little bit to a more steadier stage.
okay, and then obviously water, there's been I was just really interested to find out, Julie, this might be you potentially.
Because of the legislative comments around this, just because it was bothering someone, the time was still like, so there was, you know, that there'd been communication with the customer staff who said, you just tune it away. About it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And what is the future of versus acknowledging to because it's quite a sort of you've got to headline areas that head on to so some researchers will pass it to if they don't actually so we
yeah, now just with regards to the I'm just trying to find there was in regards to the open, there's a wheel somewhere with regards to what's open and what's closed. With regards to customer service, and in particular the water reticulation. So those 47 that are open, and I'll ask, so this is in the service requests, and there's a 47 open. How many of those are open requests in relation to water that's leaking on a property that is obviously metered?
So they won't be in relation to that, because there's really good closeouts on those. I need to, touch in with, David and the customer services team and the IT team, because there's and as you're occurring in the system, where the link between the various systems that get used is closing back out in the service request system.
Okay.
As might be done, but they'll be shown in the service request system that's not being completed, but in that actual system we need to manage the physical work that have been done. And it's just the linkage between the two systems, there's no system.
I'm just conscious, obviously, with the metered water, people will get quite hot under the collar if things aren't done within a certain time.
If it's on the other side of the meter edge, we do them and they're getting done.
Yeah. Any further questions?
No, got one on.
Are you done?
Oh, but just with the turnover, that's probably Peter's corner, with the turnover, staff turnover average 2 years. And you look at the demographics and the average age. With the, this is, I'm just not to how to frame this, you've got a lot of mothers or people that are probably childbearing age. Do we have a bigger risk with maternity leave when you've got a high percentage of female staff? Is it a cost or a benefit to the business, I guess?
It's a benefit. And actually, we've been parking, of course. And so in my 2.5 years here, I'm in the 40s, it's all manageable.
Yeah.
And actually, our attrition rate, our retention rates, we're retaining more people. That's pretty positive as well. So, and we have a pretty good wellbeing policy with the maternity leave and all those sorts of things, and their statutory requirements. Attractive place and attractive place to work.
We have made a lot of people on maternity leave over the last couple of years.
How are we going to vote up Kensington?
So it's pretty, I'm gonna say it's a pretty good age group demographic for a staff, for an average age of a staff.
And with the demographics, with a lot of roles that sort of like around, administrators, all customer service, and customer services, roles like that, that can be a little bit time.
Okay.
So you're looking for a car cleaner? Yeah, you could, honestly.
Well, it's not, hold on, David's obviously got something.
Just when this report was done, we, just to Julie's point, we did look at all the open service requests right across council. And so there has been little projects in over the last couple of months working through that. And more often than not, it's been to the administration thing, making sure that it's our own processes. So there's probably a good chunk of that across most of the open service requests, and the next one council sees will be much more, not say reliable, but it's, very open. So, yeah, imagine probably more than, waiting to see the government.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Just need someone to note, so to move that the report be received and the contents noted. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Against. Okay, Lydia, you're up. We'll just put the next one in.
Key risk page. This is the key risk report. So this is an updated version because the full key risk report went to board in earlier this month. So the only change to note is auditing the Cromwell facility, by the way, operational readiness risk has reduced in residual ratings. So that went from a medium to a low, which just reflects the progress that's being made in that operational space. Everything else did remain stable, with the top two risks still being free water management and financial sustainability.
Any questions?
Move report.
Okay, thank you, Stu. Thank you, Cheryl. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
2 minutes overdue for lunch.
Oh, yeah, my apologies.
I've one down now.
Right, okay. So we'll break for lunch.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne.
They get scared coming in for lunch and attack.
Yeah, you get long, have lunch, so attack another.
Yes.
You take that free seat well, didn't you?